Samurai. Samurai, as we know them today, were a noble military class of feudal Japan that emerged during the Kamakura shogunate. The samurai were paid retainers of the
daimyo,
powerful Japanese feudal lords who ruled most of Japan under a shogun or an emperor. The samurai enjoyed special privileges compared to peasants, such as land ownership, the right to carry weapons, the right to kill lower-classmen, legal leniency, or access to education. They followed Bushido, meaning the way of the warrior, which was a moral code outlining values a samurai should abide by. The core virtues of Bushido were loyalty, honor, righteousness, bravery, respect, benevolence, honesty, and self-control. It is worth noting that what is considered Bushido has been greatly romanticized in recent history, and every samurai had their own understanding of the warrior code. The samurai were extensively trained in various types of combat, both on foot and on horseback. Although they were best known for their swordsmanship using the katana, the use of bows was considered a more vital skill. For close combat, the samurai were typically armed with a katana, a long, curved, and slender single-bladed longsword paired with a shorter blade known as a wakizashi, a practice known as
daisho,
They also often carried short stabbing knives known as
tanto,
or
kabutowari,
a dull knife-shaped weapon designed for piercing armor. For medium-range combat, the samurai employed bladed poles known as
naginata,
or spears known as.
yari,
For long-distance engagements, an asymmetric longbow known as
yumi,
was used. In later periods, the use of firearms was introduced into the samurai arsenal. For protection, the samurai used various types of body armor, the most well-known being
oyoroi,
which was generally of higher quality, more expensive to maintain, and designed for horseback archery used by the higher-ranking samurai, and the
domaru,
which was cheaper to make but also lighter and more flexible. Over the years, the samurai have faced many threats, both internal, fighting each other on behalf of their feudal lords, and external, protecting the islands from invaders. But with the modernization of the Japanese military around the 19th century, employing samurai became unsustainable, and with the Meiji Restoration, they were formally abolished, giving way to a more modern military system. English longbowmen. Even though the wooden bow has been used in warfare for hundreds of years, it was not until the appearance of the yew longbow that it became a dominant force on the European battlefields. It is debated whether the longbow originated in England or Wales, but by the 14th century it was used by both the English and the Welsh as a weapon of war and a hunting tool. The longbow was heavily utilized during the medieval period, and the men that used them quickly became the backbone of the English army, and a force to be reckoned with on the European battlefields. The practice of archery was greatly encouraged throughout England, making a lot of its population at least somewhat skilled in it. A typical English longbowman was not a career soldier, but a hunter who used a bow on a regular basis to provide for his family. Because the bow was considered an almost essential tool in a household, many people saw the purchase of a quality longbow as a good investment. A skilled archer was able to shoot between 3 and 5 or 6 arrows per minute. But rarely was this rate of fire consistent due to the force that was required to draw the weapon. Their effective and accurate range was around 80 meters, but the arrows could reach targets even 300 or more meters away. Although to be effective, a barrage of them needed to be fired. The longbowmen were usually lightly armed and placed behind some sort of defense, whether it was a natural point of advantage or a line of infantry, from behind which the archers would shower the enemy with a volley of arrows fired in unison. The arrows that were used could be separated into hunting arrows and war arrows. The hunting variant sported various types of heads, such as broad, forked, or barbed arrowheads, while the most common war arrowhead was the bodkin, designed for piercing armor. One of the most widely known effective uses of the longbowman was the 1415 Battle of Agincourt, where the English and Welsh archers, numbering between 5,000 and 7,000 strong and making up about 5/6 of the English army, ensured a victory against the French force of over 20,000. Although longbowmen have been a destructive force for decades, in the 16th century, when firearms and cannons became more widespread, they slowly fell into obscurity on the battlefield, The Polish Hussars, also known as the Winged Hussars, or
Skrzydlata husaria.
were elite heavy cavalrymen established in 1503. The early Hussars were a light cavalry unit that likely had its beginnings when exiled Serbian and Hungarian warriors came to Poland as mercenaries in the early 16th century, only to be integrated into the Polish army after some military reforms around 1580. The new and improved Winged Hussars were recruited from nobility. They were heavily armored horsemen, skilled in breaking enemy ranks in brutal and swift charges. A key distinguishing feature of the Polish Hussars were the large rear wings intended to demoralize the enemy during cavalry charges, and the use of often exotic animal pelts as armor decoration. Winged Hussars wielded heavy lances, typically measuring between 4.5 and 6 meters in length, along with various types of swords and sabers. These included the
Koncerz.
a narrow thrusting sword, the
Pałasz.
a backsword, and the
Szabla husarska.
a Polish saber. They also carried maces, hatchets, warhammers, pistols, and other firearms, with the carabine becoming a mandatory weapon for Hussars in the latter half of the 17th century. Their armor was distinctively colored in Poland's national red and white scheme, often embellished with gold decorations and adorned with animal skins. Typical elements of their armor included the cuirass, spalders, arm braces, beavors, burgonet or lobster-tailed helmets, jackboots, and sometimes small cavalry shields. The Winged Hussars were renowned for their bravery and effectiveness on the battlefield, a reputation solidified during the Battle of Vienna in September 1683. In this historic engagement, 3,000 Polish Hussars, joined by 15,000 allied horsemen under the command of
Jan III Sobieski.
executed a legendary charge against the Ottoman besiegers, decisively breaking their ranks and securing a victory for the Christian coalition. This charge is now recognized as the largest single cavalry charge in world history. Hoplites. Greek hoplites were the heavily armored citizen soldiers that formed the backbone of ancient Greek warfare from the 7th to 4th centuries BCE. An ancient Greek city-state usually didn't have an actively serving military force. Rather, every male, upon reaching adulthood, would go through training that included drills, wrestling, tactics, and working in formation. In times of war, males, usually up to the age of 60, could also be drafted, although exceptions could be made. Each hoplite was responsible for providing his own equipment, leading to variations in gear among soldiers. A common hoplite typically carried a shield, spear, and possibly a helmet, with limited body armor. Wealthier hoplites equipped themselves with linen body armor called linothorax, while the wealthiest could afford bronze cuirasses, greaves, bracers, and a variety of helmets like Corinthian, Chalcidian, or Thracian types, along with shields, spears, and short swords for close combat. The key tactic of hoplite warfare was the phalanx formation, where soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, shields overlapping, presenting a wall of spears to the enemy. This formation emphasized cohesion, discipline, and teamwork, making hoplite armies formidable opponents on the battlefield. One of the most famous battles involving Greek hoplites was the Battle of Marathon in 490 BCE, where they achieved a remarkable victory over a much larger Persian force. The Greek hoplites thinned their ranks to match the Persians, advanced towards the enemy, and then broke into a sprint upon entering the range of Persian archers, inflicting significant casualties and enveloping Persian troops. Legend has it that after routing the Persians, a Greek runner was dispatched to Athens to announce the victory. He ran the entire distance of 42 kilometers, and upon delivering the news, collapsed and died of exhaustion, inspiring the modern marathon race. The Medjay were ancient Nubian warriors who served as a tribal and later as a specialized police force in ancient Egypt. Originating in the region of Nubia, modern-day Sudan, the Medjay gained prominence during the Middle Kingdom of Egypt and continued to play a role through the New Kingdom period. Initially, the Medjay were known as a tribal group from Nubia, skilled in hunting and warfare. As Egypt expanded southward into Nubia, the Medjay were recruited into the Egyptian army, becoming renowned for their tracking abilities, archery skills, and fierce combat tactics. The Medjay were typically equipped with simple weaponry, including bows and arrows, spears and shields. They were known for their expertise in desert warfare and hit-and-run tactics, often ambushing enemies or conducting reconnaissance missions deep into hostile territories. During the New Kingdom period, the Medjay transitioned into a specialized police force, responsible for maintaining order in the Egyptian frontier regions. They were tasked with controlling nomadic tribes, preventing smuggling and guarding important trade routes, particularly in the eastern desert and Sinai Peninsula. They were also tasked with protecting places of pharaonic interest like royal cemeteries or palaces. While the Medjay eventually faded from historical records after the decline of the New Kingdom, their legacy as skilled warriors and guardians of Egypt's frontier regions remains a testament to their significant contributions to ancient Egyptian society and military history. Janissaries. The Janissaries were an elite corps of infantry soldiers in the Ottoman Empire, being possibly the first infantry force in the world to be equipped with firearms. Originating in the late 14th century, the Janissaries were initially recruited from Christian communities in the Balkans through the devshirme system, where young boys were taken as slaves, taught Turkish by foster families, converted to Islam, and trained for military service in Constantinople. The Janissaries were equipped with distinctive uniforms and weaponry. They wore a distinctive tall hat called a bork, along with a long robe or tunic. Their primary weapons included bows and later muskets, swords, and occasionally shields. The Janissaries were renowned for their firearm proficiency, which was a significant innovation in Ottoman military tactics. Throughout their history, the Janissaries participated in numerous battles and campaigns, playing a crucial role in expanding and defending the Ottoman Empire. One of their most famous battles was the Siege of Constantinople in 1453, where they were instrumental in capturing the city and bringing an end to the Byzantine Empire. The Janissaries developed unique military tactics, blending traditional Ottoman warfare with modern innovations. They excelled in siege warfare, utilizing cannons and firearms to breach enemy defenses. The Janissaries also pioneered the use of volley fire and coordinated infantry maneuvers on the battlefield. The Janissaries were not only soldiers, but also served in administrative and political roles. They formed an influential social and political class, with their own hierarchy and system of organization. The era of the Janissaries came to an end in the early 19th century, when they rebelled against reforms initiated by Sultan Mahmud II. In 1826, the Janissaries were officially disbanded by the Sultan, marking the end of their centuries-long legacy as an elite military force and influential institution within the Ottoman Empire. Shinobi, more commonly known as ninja, were covert agents, espionage specialists, and mercenary spies originating from feudal Japan. It is believed Shinobi predecessors were disgruntled peasant groups that fought landowners and the ownership system using covert tactics in the 14th century. The actual Shinobi, meaning specially trained covert mercenary agents, had their beginning during the Sengoku period in the 15th century. The Shinobi were skilled in stealth, espionage, camouflage, disguise, martial arts, guerrilla warfare, interrogation, and evasion, which allowed them to operate undetected behind or within the enemy ranks. They utilized a variety of tools and weapons, with the shuriken, kunai, or short bows being the most commonly associated with the Shinobi among other weapons. They also were proficient in ninjutsu, a martial arts strategy focused on unconventional warfare, hand-to-hand combat, and espionage tactics. Contrary to their pop culture portrayal, Shinobi did not wear black clothing. Instead, they often operated within the enemy ranks for prolonged periods of time, impersonating, disguising themselves, or fully infiltrating the enemy in order to carry out their tasks. The decline of the Shinobi occurred with the establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate in the early 17th century, which ushered in an era of stability and reduced the need for covert operatives. War elephants, mainly the North African forest elephants, and their riders utilized by the Carthaginian general Hannibal during the Punic War of 218 BCE between Carthage and Rome, were, in a sense, shock cavalry units focused on strategically breaking through enemy lines, creating openings for infantry and demoralizing the enemy. The war elephants were outfitted with specialized equipment for battle. They wore protective armor, covering the most vulnerable parts of their bodies like the trunk, legs, or neck made of leather, cloth, or metal plates. The offensive capabilities of the war elephants did not only come from the animal itself, but also from its riders known as mahuts. Besides the driver, between 2 and 4 soldiers were placed on the animal's back, often carrying long lances, javelins, or bows for combat. Some elephants were equipped with towers or platforms known as howdahs on their backs, increasing combat effectiveness of the soldiers riding the animal. Hannibal's war elephants participated in several key battles, most notably the Battle of Cannae in 216 BCE. At Cannae, Hannibal's forces utilized war elephants to disrupt the Roman infantry formations, causing chaos and panic among their ranks. The elephants played a crucial role in the Carthaginian victory, although they also faced challenges navigating the rugged terrain and resisting Roman countermeasures. The era of war elephants in Mediterranean warfare gradually waned following the conclusion of the Second Punic War. Evolving military tactics and logistical difficulties ultimately led to a decline in the use of war elephants on the battlefield,